talking about organization and project budgets today. Especially if you're joining us for the first time today, say hello in the chat and let us know what organization or group you're a part of. And then if there's any questions that have come up since session one, feel free to throw those in the chat as we're all coming in. Just a reminder to please stay muted when you're not speaking and keep your camera on as much as you can. It really helps to be able to see the people in the session. And then if you don't have some note-taking, a piece of paper, your project charter, a Word document, something in front of you, get something together to take some notes today. So this session is being recorded and we are going to share out slides afterwards. I believe everybody received session one slides and the link to the recording. And then we sent out that charter again. If anybody in this group does not have the project charter or hasn't received it in an email, please put that in the chat and we'll be sure to get it to you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to those who are joining us for the first time today. Okay, I'm gonna go over the welcome one more time, then we'll get started, just because we have some people coming in. So this is Ready, Set, Grant, session 2. Welcome. Say hello in the chat if you're, especially if you're jumping in for the first time, but we love hellos from everybody. Please put any questions. I'm hearing Arthur say he can't hear anyone. Can everybody hear me? Okay, Arthur, it might be an issue with your microphone or speaker, most likely. So any questions from last week, any lingering thoughts, please throw those in the chat. Turn your camera on so we can see you. And make sure you have some way to take notes ready. If you did not receive the project charter, which is like the organizational or the grant writing document that we're going to be working with throughout this course, please let us know in the chat so we can be sure to get that to you. Okay. So happy to have you all here. Let's talk quickly about group norms. We saw this slide last time. So if you're not able to join the breakout groups for any reason today, please just send Jimena a quick message in the chat. You can send her a private message. Jimena, do you quickly want to, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Bonnie Day. I'm the Partnerships and Fund Development Manager at Rural Development Initiatives. And I'm hosting this course. Jimena is our coordinator for Ready, Set, Grant for this session. So she is doing all of our backgrounds behind the scenes, everything, and we're so grateful for her. Jimena, do you want to say hi really quick and talk about the Zoom functionality?
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Jimena. As Bonnie mentioned, I will be coordinating this session. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or use the feature raise hand. There's also a feature called React. If there's something like, hey, put your thumbs up, you guys can put a thumbs up, a little heart, So those are the main features that we'll be using. I'll also be using breakout rooms and the polls, but those will just pop up and then you'll participate. If you have any questions or having any issues, just put them in the chat and I will try to my best to help you.
Excellent, thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
So let's, I think the only things I want to mention on the group norms is, feel free to come off mute and make a comment, especially if you are trying to get our attention. Hey, Libby, I saw your message, glad to hear. I cannot always see the chat. So if you are trying to get my attention, feel free to come off mute and say whatever is on your mind. And then, let's treat this as a group conversation. We're here to learn from RDI and also learn from our peers. So we want to get some good conversations going, and you all have a lot of expertise that you can share as well. So we're really interested in your knowledge and what you can bring to this course as well. So feel free to jump in and share your experiences. So today we are talking about budgeting. We're talking about organizational budgets and project budgets. And there's some specifics on the screen here. We'll be focusing on why it's important to diversify revenue for your organization and how you can accomplish that. And looking at those project budgets, we'll start to develop a budget for the project you identified in your last class. And we're not going to get too deep into like the accounting of it all, into like the complicated calculations, but we're going to focus on getting those line items together and how that how telling that story through a budget is going to support your grant proposal. So a couple things we want to do before we start. So Libby, I know you just jumped in. I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but we're so happy to have you here. So Libby is here from Kelly Nonprofit, and I'm hoping she's able to jump in and talk a little bit about Kelly Nonprofit and talk about the technical assistance piece that goes along with this course.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Bonnie. Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Carter. I work with Kelly Nonprofit Consulting, and we have partnered with RDI on this program since its inception. I think we're on, I don't know, almost somewhere around the 15th cohort of groups. We're up there somewhere. And we are, the technical assistance provider kind of outside of these workshops that RDI leads. And just a little bit about Kelly Nonprofit Consulting. We're a team of about 25 full-time team members, and we have been around for almost 20 years now. I've worked with Kelly Nonprofit Consulting for almost a decade. We have a variety of experiences on our team. So we have, of course, fund development is a key part. So fund readiness, helping with policy and procedure development, board development and support, and then grant writing. So, everything related to that, and including government, corporate, foundation. And then we also have our marketing and communications department, which I know is a little bit outside of the scope and focus of this work, but we have, that capacity as well, which is often an important part of fundraising for an organization overall. And then we also have our financial management team that provides, accounting and bookkeeping support, CFO level services, financial forecasting. And that's aligned with, it sounds like, what the topic is today of budget creation. So we, through our work together, we offer up to 10 organizations who sign up a 1-hour strategy session at no cost to your organization. For 10 of those groups who are, ready for some additional support, we provide also an additional 5 hours of direct hands-on support with our team. And that could be, depending on what you identify as a need, that could be someone from our grant writing team, that could be someone from our financial team if you need help, creating a budget for a grant, or, something related to budgeting for your organization to help get you grant ready. So some of the things that we have provided to other groups participating in this training in the past, we can help review a draft grant that you have in process. We've helped, develop copy for a specific project or need for your organization. We can be a sounding board and help with strategy related to a specific project, program. Some of the groups we've worked with through this program are looking to start a capital campaign, or, embark on a new larger project. And so we can help provide some, strategy, high level process for what that might look like for your organization. Some groups have wanted help with like prospect research. So helping give a list of maybe like, here are 10 funders that are a good fit for your organization that you might want to, look at applying to over the next year. So a variety of things that we can help with and use our time for. I don't know, Bonnie, yet if we've provided you with the link for groups to sign up. If we have not, we'll do that as soon as possible so that groups can start to sign up for time together. Usually I would say there's about a 3-month kind of timeline during and post these workshops where groups can use their hours. So sometimes we'll meet with a group and do a 1-hour strategy session. They have a grant that's due in a month and a half. And so we, schedule that time out, maybe a month on the calendar to talk about that grant that you have coming up that's due, for example. So there's a little bit of flexibility. You don't need to use your hours like, within 2 weeks. So, or something like that. We can be a little bit flexible on when you want to use your hours as well. I think that's, just a little more about our team. About our experience and our capacity. We work with dozens of groups every week. Some of our clients are long-term, worked with them for over a decade. Some of them are through technical assistance programs similar to this one. We work with nonprofit organizations. We work with public entities like, cities and county governments. We also work with philanthropic agencies like funders throughout the Pacific West and beyond as well. So we just have a wealth of knowledge and experience on our team that we're excited to, connect with any groups who are interested in receiving some support at no cost to you as part of this program. And just look forward to connecting. So I don't know, Bonnie, if there's time for questions or not, or if there are questions, maybe we send them over email and we can follow up with you. Totally up to you.
Yeah, let's do, if there are questions about how the technical assistance will work, please email me and Jimena or one of us. And we can clarify, or if there's, again, if a lot of the support that Kelly Nonprofit provides to this course is those kind of technical specific questions that we need their expertise on. So if there's any of those questions, we can be an intermediary for that too. We don't have the link yet for that training. As soon as that behind the scenes piece is all set up, we'll get that link sent out to the group. And then, is this true, Libby? As soon as that link is sent out, people can start signing up.
Yep, that's correct. So it's just a really quick kind of intake form that will be on the link where you will tell us a little bit more about what questions you have, a little bit more about your organization, and give us a couple of dates for when you want to meet for our first strategy session. And so it shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes at most to fill out that intake form. And yeah, then we'll just, from that intake form, we will just get the meeting on the calendar based on your availability.
Did that answer your question, Jody, or? Okay. Cool. All right, Libby, thanks so much. If you can stay on until we get through this slide, just like a couple more minutes. I did want to touch on, before we jump into budgeting, there was a question in the last session about county level data points, and especially in reference to more information rather than non-English speaker or English language learner, right? Like what languages are being spoken. So I wanted to share just a couple ideas, and Libby, if you have anything in mind, please share as well. Can you see the healthy climate, Jimena? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so a couple ideas. This one is, I just want to point out, this is very specific, as far as I know, very specific to Klamath County. But if you happen to be in Klamath County, this is a great resource to know about. I believe this is only an option because Klamath Falls and surrounding areas are part of like the Blue Zones project, which is like a big global project. But you may live in an area that has like a really cool data portal like this, where you can look up something like language and something like linguistic isolation might come up, and we'll say we want to see it at a county level. And so this isn't exactly what we're looking for. This isn't saying what languages are spoken still, but we're getting some interesting data here about people who are experiencing isolation because of language. The other like kind of key words that I just wanted to point out, and most communities should have something like this. If you look up your county, your city, plus community health assessment, just Google that. So here I did Marion County Community Health Assessment, and this is what came up. This is data that usually your local CCO, which community, I don't know what CCO stands for, but your local healthcare person, or sometimes a hospital will put it out. This is really interesting data sets usually, and I rely on these quite a lot. So I just want to point out, if I go to, from here, I went to view the current community health assessment. It took me to the most recent Marion County health assessment, and there's a whole page about languages. And again, we're seeing English or language other than English. But if we look below, we find more information about what languages are being spoken in Marion County. So that's another interesting, so just keeping that in mind, that like your area plus community health assessment is a really helpful one usually. And then I also want to point out, because these are really interesting, just another really interesting data point to keep in mind. This is true in Oregon. I'm not sure if this is true everywhere. But every public school in Oregon has to put out a annual report card. And so here I'm at the Pendleton School District report card. And I can look at the district level, or I can look at any individual school in that district. I can open this up, and it's giving me some really interesting information about students that are in the Pendleton School District, which there's only one school district in the city of Pendleton. So we're talking about like the majority of the students in the city of Pendleton here, right? So we can see demographics on this side. And we can see here that there's 16 languages spoken within the school district. So again, it's not telling me what those languages are, but I can get some clues as to some different things going on. And then this second page is giving some statistics about like how they're doing it at like you know, how students are doing at testing and stuff like that, and they have that broken down by demographics. This will give you some interesting, you know, like these are the demographics that they're breaking it down by. So those are just also some interesting little data points that you can kind of pull some clues from. So just wanted to share those. I don't know, Libby, do you have any favorites that you want to mention?
No, that what you shared is spot on with what I was thinking as well. Especially the ODE level, like if your group is you know, specifically reaching youth. So yeah, I totally agree with everything you shared, Bonnie. And it depends on a county level too. Like sometimes there's so for example, sometimes there will be kind of like an economic development type survey that a county does, or I've seen, you know, some tribes do this as well, and it has, you know, that really detailed breakdown of demographics too. So your county might have something like that too. County, it's usually CEDS, County Economic Development Survey, I believe is what that stands for. So another search option if you want to, yeah, if you are looking for that higher level of demographic data too.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here, Libby.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a couple of minutes, and yeah, I'm gonna hop off, but I look forward to connecting with some of you through our one-on-one time, and yeah, have a great session today.
Cool. Thank you. See ya.
Okay.
Okay, and so one other thing on our list before we jump into content, we're gonna hear from Christine and Jimena. So again, Christine is joining us as a RDI employee and a program delivery person. And her and Jimena are going to talk about some offerings coming up.
Hi everyone again. So I just wanted to take a moment to promote and share one of our upcoming programs called Lunchtime Leadership. This program is targeted towards rural leaders in the Pacific Northwest. There are 4 interactive sessions, and they consist of network building and rural focused content. The sessions will be held on Wednesdays, and the dates are October 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. If you're interested in participating, we still have open registrations. We'll include a link and a picture in the chat so you guys can find out more information. And yeah, if you guys are interested in registering, or if you guys know of anyone that may be interested, feel free to share that with anyone in your network. Anything to add, Christine?
No, that was amazing. Well done, Jimena.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm finishing getting those sites that I just shared in the chat real quick. And while I'm doing that, Jimena, we have a poll we just want to get a sense today of who has experience with budgets, like who is a budget master at their organization, or not even a master, but has experience. So Jimena's gonna put a poll up, and if you can answer that quickly. Excellent. So we have a lot of people that have worked on project budgets before. Okay, let me get my slides back up. So we will try to get the people that have some project budget experience. We'll try to get you like mixed in with our groups today to be able to support those conversations about budgeting. As I said in the beginning, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your experience and expertise. And we want to hear what the questions and gaps are that are coming up for people as well. So feel free to put questions in the chat. Sorry, put questions in the chat and or speak up and come off mute as you like. And so moving on, let's take a look at what's going on in Oregon. So we're focusing in on Oregon. I know there's people here from other states, and I'm sorry that we end up being so Oregon specific in this course. That's because that's coming from my frame of knowledge. But we can assume that these numbers are similar in Washington and Idaho, right? So looking at these numbers, I just wanna like make the point of just how many nonprofits are out there and how much funding is out there, right? So 10,000 nonprofits and 1,700 grant making foundations. So keeping that in mind, the point is like this is competitive, and this course is everybody in this course is rural serving organizations. We focus on the more under-resourced areas of our states and of our region. So in rural communities, there are traditionally less opportunities for fundraising, right? And that can be due to less big business, so less corporate funding, less people, generally just a lower population, which means less people with high amounts of individual wealth, right? Which means just a smaller pool of people to ask for support. So the same people end up getting asked over and over. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, that you're negotiating with your partner nonprofits about like who is going to ask this person to support their organization. And then another important point, statewide funders are often like centered in urban places, right? So even though they know that we're out there, they know rural organizations exist, they don't see us as often. We're not like their next door neighbors. We're not like in their face all of the time, right? So their awareness of what's going on in our rural communities is just naturally going to be a little lower. So we have to work a little harder to be in front of them. So this idea of there's limited funding in our rural areas, which creates some competition between the organizations that are in these smaller communities. I want to put the idea out there that because there are less resources, it's even more important for us to think about effective fundraising, right? Why am I applying for this money? Do I need this money? What is like the impact that this money would give if I received it? And then also to be thinking about like, how am I going to set myself apart in this application, through this application process? But then also like, is there an opportunity to partner with other organizations so we can turn that competition on its head, right? And instead we're coming at this as a collaborative. We're going to talk more about partnerships in some later sessions, but just want to put those ideas out there. This slide is showing where donations or where nonprofit funding is coming from. And you can see that 64% is individual donations. That number always gets me. I would expect it to be from foundations, but 21% is from foundations. And then 6% from corporations. So when we're looking at grant funding, it might not be which is the foundation funding, it might not be the most ready resource for available funding that's out there. I want to look at flexibility of revenue types. So on this slide, down at the bottom, and in these yellow bars, we have restricted grants, and then all the way at the top, we have unrestricted grants, and then everything in between, right? So when we talk about flexibility, we're talking about what can you use this money for and when, like within what timeline. So restricted grants, which are the majority of grants that are awarded, or the majority of grants that are available, are going to be for a specific purpose. If you're awarded the grant, you're going to sign a contract that says, we're going to use this money to do this thing in this amount of time. Whereas on the other end, you have unrestricted grants, also known as general operating grants, right? That are, when you sign that contract, it's going to say, we're going to continue our work, our mission-based work, right? They're just funding your mission with unrestricted grants, and you use that funding however you see best within your organization. So most grants, sponsorships, and mini donations put restrictions on how you can use the money they give. Examples include, so even individual donations, contracts, obviously, if you sign into a contract with somebody it's going to be to do a specific kind of work, right? Even individual donors will say a lot of times that they want their funds used in a specific way. So they might want to serve a specific community, they might want it within a specific time period. And some might even say like, this can only be used for supplies. This can only be used to buy like tangible objects that are going to go towards your programs, right? And we don't want to see this funding used for staff time or other program costs, right? So when we're looking at funding flexibility, we want to beware of restricted grant dependency, because those funding sources are going to lock you in. And it's not going to give you that responsive funding you need to be able to like take care of the plumbing when your plumbing goes bad, right? Which is an emergency cost, but you might not have funding available to let you do that when it happens. So thinking about the sustainability of your organization, you need several streams of income to ensure flexible money. So the game is to maximize unrestricted revenue as much as you can. Yeah, I think that's the main thing I want to say there. I'm gonna move on from that slide. Any questions on that piece though? And this is really looking at, there's an advocacy piece here that we'll touch on a little bit, but this is really funders being aware of what nonprofits need. The responsive, flexible funding that nonprofits need to be able to successfully do their mission, right? And we'll get into that a little more. Right now, we're talking about kind of the most restrictive things that happen. So within greater fund development, grants should be thought of as supplemental discretionary funding for activities already planned to occur 3 to 9 months in the future. So grants are more restricted than other types of funding and should be targeted for specific purposes. Grants are a good fit for new programs or piloting a program. They're a great fit for capital projects, for building and construction. They're a great fit for reaching new populations or expanding your programs, and a great fit for building organizational capacity. for when internally your organization is ready to grow. And so a note that we're really focusing in on this like project funding that's available out there. There are grants out there for that general operating or those unrestricted funds. And they're starting to pop up more and more as funders respond to like what nonprofits are telling them, right? What organizations and groups are saying they need funding for. So I just want to mention trust-based philanthropy. And this idea describes a focus on funder-fundee partnerships and a focus on alleviating the grant burden on nonprofit leaders. So this might look like a funder or foundation giving unrestricted funds to an organization to spend how they best see fit. And there might not be any reporting, there might not be any timeline. It's simply funding that supports the mission of your organization. We're having a funder panel in session 5 of this course. And some of the funders that are going to be represented at that panel are looking into this trust-based philanthropy. All of them are very interested in that partnership with with the organizations that they're funding, and looking at that, how can we best support you? So these are just ideas to keep in mind. I think generally you're going to see this project-based, and it's a safe place to be, but this trust-based philanthropy is becoming more common. So that was a lot of info, sorry. Does anybody here have like questions or comments? Has anybody received have a strong partnership with a funder that is willing to grant unrestricted funds to your organization? I'd love to hear about it. You don't have to name the funder. That might be a partnership you're holding really close. If you have those partnerships, throw them in the chat for sure. I think it's helpful for us to know that they exist out there, right? Definitely, it's an angle that RDI in our policy work is working to bring that to the forefront of funders' minds. And you see when funders do funder tours, when they come around the state and they come to your small town or somewhere close to your small town, hopefully, and have a chance to for you to come say hi to them and talk to them. This is what they're trying to get at, and they want, this is your opportunity to say to funders, like, what we really need is flexible funding. So I would encourage you all to take advantage of those moments as they come up. And moving on, let's jump into a little activity. So this is going to be our warm-up for getting started talking about funding community work. We're going to have, so we have a hypothetical group project, and our group project is building a community playground. So together, we're all imagining that we're building, that we are looking for funding to build a playground. So we're going to go through some funding opportunities that are going to come up while we're starting to research and we're starting to talk to people about building this playground. We're going to go through, I think, 4 or 5 different funding sources. And we're going to talk about each of them. We can choose to accept or not accept the offered resource. And if we accept the resource, we're going to have to accept any associated restrictions that come with that resource. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And another thing to keep in mind as we go through this exercise, if we accept a resource and it's not in our budget, then we have to add that expense to our budget, like we have to increase our budget to include this new expense that's come up. And so we're going to increase the total project cost. Okay, so let's jump in. We'll just go through the first one, see how it goes, and then we have a couple more after it. So again, the activity is we're working together to build a hypothetical community playground project. So we've been getting the word out, we've been talking to people, and the first resource that comes up is a local arts and heritage organization offers to donate 3 decorative benches for the playground. So these benches are worth $3,000. But what's not included with these benches is an additional $1,200 to have the benches secured to new concrete pads to install the benches. So I want to open it up to the group. This would be a new expenditure to our playground project. Do we want to add that into our budget to accommodate the donation? What do you guys think? Feel free to throw something in the chat or come off mute and let me know. Let us know. It's a good opportunity to find an individual who might do the installation, right? That's a good point, Tammy. Thanks. Yeah. So maybe there's somebody out there, like maybe our local construction company would donate some time to do the installation, right? It's a good collaboration. It gets some other organizations involved. Yeah, thanks for that idea. Can it be a tentative agreement that is pending based on what other funding comes in? Yeah, so it gives us this additional $1,200 that we have to think about, right? So is there an opportunity to say to the local arts organization, we want to accept this donation, but that $1,200 is really going to get in our way. We don't have it. Like, let's work together to find that $1,200 because that will complete this project.
Jody, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess I was trying to figure out, I mean, is this a whole playground? I mean, obviously, if it is, then we're looking at other possible expenses, other different things that might need installation and sort of increasing like on a side budget of as that comes in. Unless it's only an isolated part of the playground, and that's what I'm not clear on from your first slide.
Sure. Well, let's make it up. What do we think? Is this I would assume that we're doing a full playground, that this is like an empty plot of grassland and we're installing something on it. We're gonna make it a community hotspot. So yeah, I think when we're looking at it as a full construction project, like this is a piece of a bigger project, right? We have other expenses, right? Say like we've been quoted $25,000 from the whoever, like playgrounds.us or whoever it is that is going to like bring the entire structure to our town and set it up, right? This is, yeah, go ahead, Jody.
So I guess the other thing is looking at it from a standpoint of saying, okay, if we're looking for a large amount of sponsorships, maybe multiples, is have a graduated thing like sort of a gold level, a bronze level, you know, that way of different contributors. And so we would want to make sure that they are well spoken for, depending, you know, and the higher up it goes, the more that their name gets out there about sponsoring or something. Might
Right.
be.
Yeah, I like that. So this could be like the kickoff of like, oh, we need some community support to get this piece done. Like maybe we have a plan for that $25,000, but now we need another plan for this additional $1,200. So who can we go to in the community, and can we do like what sort of recognition can we provide for those community members?
I
Um,
have a quick
Yeah,
comment.
Christine.
If, if your partner is the city, do they have any red tape around decorative benches? I know a lot of cities won't allow you to do anything outside the quote unquote norm of what they've approved. So that's a red flag for me, is like whoever your partner is, making sure it aligns with what their parameters are.
Yeah, it is your local arts org, so what are these, who made these benches?
Yeah. Are they engineers? Are they gonna
I see Samar says, bringing in Boy Scouts, NJROTC. Yeah, who are your community partners that might be able to commit some funds to this? Phasing it out, Jennifer, yeah, can we make this a separate little piece? Yeah, okay, we'll put these benches in storage for a minute. When I can think about this, I'm gonna raise $1,200 to get them installed. Yeah, permits and approvals. Thanks, Emily, just catching up on the chat. If we were gonna do benches otherwise, maybe we just didn't have a plan in place and this has just solved a problem for us, then yeah, let's go for it. But if we were well, that wasn't even on our radar, it takes a little more consideration, right? So let's check out the next opportunity that comes along while we're working through this playground project. So we have this project, it's moving forward. A contractor comes in and offers to supply all the construction materials and construction documents for $14,500. And that's $3,500 less than the quote we got from the other guy, right? So we still owe him $14,500, but the original quote we got was $18,000, so we can save a little money here. Do we accept? Are we going to move forward with this? Any questions to ask? What do we need to consider?
I guess the question would be also is there fees for last minute changes or additions that would go above and beyond, or is it sort of a carte blanche that he's going to accept it, and even if there is, that might play a factor?
Right, digging into this a little bit, what exactly are you offering? Can we get an agreement in place? Reviewing contracts, like Tammy says, lots of variable for quality, and are the specs exactly the same, right? So I think one of the questions that comes up is, who is this company? Sorry, my camera just went out. Will they install the benches too? That's such a great question. But I think you want to do your due diligence, right? Does this person have a reputation for doing solid work in the past? Who are they, right? And is there a reason why they're offering their services at a reduced price, right? Let's see. A challenge match campaign. Oh, and Samar, do you want to talk some more about that?
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll be surprised how much these challenge match campaigns would drive adoption from the community, and this will be through the email campaign, social media campaign, and to match with what we have in our budget, or if we can secure from a major donor $5,000, $10,000, whatever, and then launch the challenge match. In this way, the donors that can give $20, $50, $100, they won't see like a huge big elephant, but they feel like, okay, they can still contribute and it makes a difference. And then provide every week or every twice a week or whatever updates where we are in that challenge match campaign, so we keep encouraging the community. So we rely on the local community, rely on the trends as well of local individual and major donors that have supported such initiatives. That's another way to go and meet with few of these and secure some funding. And with that, we launch as well the challenge campaign, challenge match. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think one way, like one thing that I think would be compelling when looking at a challenge and considering this, this opportunity, right, is, this is a savings of $3,500, right? So you can say this organization is contributing $3,500 by lowering their price, right? So we have a $3,500 start. Can we match that?
Great. And one example that I can share from very recent experience in July, where we needed to fund $1 million for a cardiac monitoring system for the hospital and the whole region on Whidbey Island. And in order to go out and just say, give us $1 million, that's huge. And yeah, so I was able to secure first $100,000 from two major donors, reached out directly to these two donors. One were able to give $30,000, the other 70. So that's a total of 100, mentioned their names, launched a campaign just to match the $100,000, and boom. So the project started this way. And it's amazing how the local community were giving money and being excited, because we did not share that, okay, you're giving for the whole 1 million, just match the $100,000.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great example. And then using that, so then you find yourself with $200,000 of local community support before you've even gone to looking at grants and foundations.
Right. And then diversify the revenue source with, for example, Tour de Whidbey, where all the the money that comes with ticket sales and everything is going to go for this. But more than that, launching a peer-to-peer campaign where the cyclists, they know right now every dollar they're raising, not only they're getting 100% tax deduction, but also these cyclists that are coming from all over the United States to remote rural community on Whidbey Island in the middle of nowhere, could be for some people, but they feel that they are empowering the healthcare system. And now they see the concrete thing. It is cardiac monitoring system. If this shuts down, the whole hospital and the whole healthcare system on the whole island would shut down. So that urgency gets people as well. So that's two other forms of revenue source. Then the sponsorships for Tour de Whidbey and sponsorships for the gala and Raise the Paddle in the gala. So all these different things. And now we're not even talking about grants.
Yeah.
But that makes it easier when we apply for grants to show that we've secured 30 or 40% of the money. So they see sustainability and they see that this project will succeed and to be encouraged to give.
Yeah. Thanks, Samar. Yeah. And that's a great point about how, you're generating income from, like, I hear a lot of different revenue sources there, and thinking about that 67% comes from individual donations before you're even looking at grant funding, which is at 22%, right? So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, because if we go and apply for just a grant for a $1 million, it's not going to be accepted. Yeah. Even for a $500,000, they want to see a pattern for success, not only the organization's success, but they want to see us doing, they want to see that this project will have high level of score, high percentage of success rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And before we go to the next resource, I want to point out Becky's comment. your board might require multiple bids. Funders might also require multiple bids, right? So, it's a good thing to check. Do you need bids from a couple different sources before you make a final decision? So another thing to be aware of. Let's jump into the next resource coming in. And so this touches on some maybe related-ish to some of what Samara was saying, but a community theater group offers to hold a special performance in your honor. So this is another organization in your community that says, like, we like what we're doing, what you're doing. We have an event planned. Some of the proceeds from that event, we want to put it towards your project. So they expect that they're going to raise $3,000, and they expect to donate half of whatever they raise, so about $1,500 to your project. The catch, they need 10 volunteers to help out with this performance. They need 10 volunteers to serve as ushers during the event. Is this a opportunity you want to support, and what questions might you have? Does your organization have capacity? That is an excellent question. Samar, go ahead.
Yeah, so with my experience, the local communities like high school, and these students that they do need to do that community work. So having those sector partnerships with the local colleges and local schools would pay very highly here, because these will be our volunteers and they're ready to jump in and do things. And there's the win-win in it because they're getting their hours. Another thing is that, like, in your local communities, if you have military, they do need the sailors to fill these hours. And once you connect with them, they'll jump in and they have a higher level of being like proficient, being, efficient and professional. Like even if for painting the benches, let's say in this example, or even the maintenance and all these things, because sailors they do have different specialties and stuff. They can come and do the whole thing. And we've done that on Whidbey. The sailors came in one day and painted the whole swimming pool for the community and did the whole job. And we got the paint from Home Depot. So a project that might cost around $30,000 to be done, it was all taken care by sailors and by local community.
That's great. And so looking at those resources that are specific to your area, Whidbey Island has a base and has a large population of sailors. So is that something that you can use to your advantage, right? And if those partnerships aren't established, thinking about, is this, like, does your organization have the bandwidth, as Tammy says? Do you have the capacity? How much time is this going to end up taking, right? So what's the administrative burden of taking this on? Do you have volunteers at the ready? Do you have like a basketball team that you can call on and say like, hey, show up at this event, we need you to do this thing? Or is that a relationship that you would have to develop first before you had those 10 volunteers ready? Volunteering the county cadet firefighters, plus fulfilling the usher role and promoting the volunteer fire department simultaneously. Yeah, so if you have those partnerships established, what's the benefit to those partners as well, right? One other thing to point out on this one is not just coordinating volunteers, but what's the follow-up on receiving $1,500 from another organization and asking a favor from 10 volunteers, right? Does that mean you're throwing them all a pizza party? Does that mean that the theater is wanting a deeper relationship with you and now you've just opened up a whole can of worms, right? Like, so thinking of some of those things when you're entering into these partnerships. Yeah, so looking at agencies that support people with disabilities, in supported employment. Senior centers might be another place, so yeah, thanks for bringing up that side of it, Carter. Yeah, we've been focusing on like, who are the teenagers, who are the sailors, but like, looking at our other populations too. I love that. And let's look at opportunity number 4. So you reach out to your community to tell them about your project and to ask for support. And you get a response, right? Mr. and Mrs. Moneybags write you a check for $20,000 and hand it over. What do you need to consider before you accept this money? And what questions do you have? Are there any restrictions? Excellent question. You've given us $20,000 to build a playground, or could we potentially use that for our staff who are coordinating this fundraising campaign? Can we put that where it's most needed right now, or do we need to use it for the slide and for a sign that features your name on it prominently? Right? So asking those questions, making sure that you know what the donor's expectations are, to be sure that you can maintain that relationship. Who are Mr. and Mrs. Moneybags? What if we had their name really big? What if we named it like Mr. and Mrs. Moneybags Playground? Could that affiliation potentially alienate our stakeholders? I like the way you put that, Jade. Thank you.
Jody, you have your hand up?
Yes, would you organize your donation letter to have some of that info about if you have restrictions, or are you opening a can of worms by preempting it?
Yeah, I think that letter that you put out would say, this is what we're trying to do and this is how funds are going to be used. Then when a donation comes in of that size, that's potentially, I mean, maybe you've already raised $30,000 and an additional $20,000 is going to put you over your budget. You don't want to miss out on an opportunity to bring in that funding, right? But can we have that conversation with the donors of this much of this, like, you are going to finish this project, you are going to complete the construction of this playground and also do this cool thing. Right? So is there room to have that conversation? And one last thing to bring up with donations of this size, or any donations, is to understand, we talked about, is this a donor who wants to be celebrated, who wants to be recognized, who wants their name really big on the playground, or is this a donor who wants to stay under the radar and wants to be anonymous? That's a key thing to know before you put out your press releases, right? So, and that's one more point to clear. Okay, so here's our awesome playground. It's built. So I want to hear like what ideas came up for you all. What is this getting you thinking about? Does this relate to any projects you're working on right now? Tammy, strings are always attached. It's a good point. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about larger amounts of money. Really knowing the intention of the funder is going to help that be a success. Okay, hopefully going through those scenarios was helpful to this group. If there's questions or if this is like bringing up some things for you, Samar went through a really beautiful recapping of how her project came together. Thanks so much for sharing that. I want to know, Samar, was there a point in that project, was that $1 million totally funded by community support, or did you go to foundation or grants at some point?
So this has been launched in July, so it's still
Oh.
going, and this will roll into the end of year campaign and the so the giving season, time. So no, the whole amount is not yet. We did not get the whole amount, so we're still working on it. But that with diversifying all the different revenue sources. So the gala is coming up on October 5th. That will add into all this, and then whatever is remained, that will be announced and would be used as the case and the script and the whatever in the letters that will go after the gala to let them know how much money we still need, and that's where we launch the fall campaign. And then we'll go all the plan until December, end of December, because all the people that they need to give before the end of the year. So different letters will go every month to encourage people, even a letter for the donors that are above 74 for the IRA, so the different, things. So yeah.
That's great. Excuse me. And I like this is a great example of starting out small, building up that local support. And then once you have, some of something that you can show people care about this project, local people are putting their money towards this project. People are excited about this project and they understand the impact of it in their community. Those are all going to be things that you can share with funders to encourage them to support your project. So
Can I add one more thing, Bonnie?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
With my experience, it's success breeds success. People want to see success results, successful, and organizations and people do not give to meet our needs. It's not because we need a cardiac monitoring system or we need whatever, they give to meet their needs. So as much as we can show how to meet their needs and always report back successful in two different ways, whether people like some of them metrics and trends and results, like very much data driven, and others, they want the story that completes the whole thing and testimonials and the storytelling part. So if these two things are married together, that would resonate more with donors and grant funders. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So, just a couple points to remember up on the slide, and I think we've talked about these. So, funding begets funding. Use grants, like when you get to the grants point, when you're applying for foundation funding or grant support, you're looking at expansions, new projects, and to leverage other support to maximize your chance of success. Looking at that balanced funding profile, which just means like diverse funding sources. So having a lot of different ways that funding's coming in. And then the higher, like when you're looking to grant funders and major donors, they may be digging in a little more to the details of your finances. So when you're doing an appeal to your community specifically, you're most likely not going to get individual donors who are asking to see the most detailed budget, right? They just want their money to be going towards a project. Funders are going to ask for a budget though. Grant funders are going to ask for a budget. And I hope that one of the big takeaways is that demonstrating local support is going to be a key part of encouraging funders to jump into your project as well. So let's talk about organizational budgets a little bit. So again, looking at common proposal elements, so looking at who. So an organizational budget is referring to your organization as a whole. So who is the applicant, who is your organization, and what's their budget overall? So as opposed to your project budget, which is focused on just what you're asking for funding for, this is how does your organization as a whole spend funding? So one thing we're looking at with an organization budget is does it connect back to your mission, vision, and strategic plan that we talked about in session 1? And a good question to ask is, could somebody who is unfamiliar with your organization draw those lines between your organization budget and your mission? So is there a narrative there? Is it telling the story? So when you're building an organization budget, this is just a quick example, but you can see we have revenue on the top, expenses on the bottom. This is, and then we have our program 1, program 2 columns across the top, and administrative is that, all of those pieces that aren't direct program costs, but are necessary for program costs. So, organization budgets are typically created annually. So every year you'll want to update your organization budget. And this is considering the total costs of all of your programs, right? And I just want to point out that administrative line. So this could be called administrative, this could be called overhead, this could be called indirect. But this is an important column for making sure that all of those behind the scene things. So administrative and overhead or indirect are going to include your shared costs for technology and IT, your shared costs for human resources, your shared costs for accounting and finance. So thinking of all of those things that are all necessary, and supervision, right? That's a huge part of overhead costs. To have somebody leading the organization who's maybe not directly contributing to program 1 or program 2, but it's a necessary position to have there to keep your organization running. So that's what the administrative column is about. So when we're looking at the revenue piece back on this slide, does your organization have a plan for revenue? Do you have a fundraising strategy, right? So, or do you have a plan for having a fee for service that is going to bring in revenue? How much is it all going to cost? Again, sorry, I keep switching slides, but that's you'll figure that out in the expense. How much is it all going to cost? And how much what are the sources that are going to pay for those costs? So do you have that strategy in place to have to know, like, this is who I'm planning, these are the sources that I'm planning to receive that funding from? So we're going to do a breakout and break out into small groups to just talk about your organization budget. Where is it at? How familiar are you with it? Where does your organization funding come from? Are there options to diversify? Would adding an annual fundraiser help, or would that be is that not part of your plan? Right? And then talk about your expenses. What are the biggest expenses in your organization? And are there opportunities to share resources with other nonprofits or otherwise cut costs, right? So when, especially, this comes up a lot, especially when looking at buildings or offices, right? Are there opportunities to share, or are the resources already out there? So we will do a 8-minute breakout group, 7-minute breakout group, and groups of 4 to 5. And talk about your organization budgets, both the revenue and expenditure side. And then we'll come back together and we'll move on to project budgets.
I'm gonna open up the rooms. If for some reason you can't join, it's okay. You can just opt out. And yeah, see you guys soon. Everyone should have received an invitation. Again, if you can't join, if your microphone's not working or something, you can feel free to stay here. But we do encourage everyone to participate as much as they can.
I pushed the wrong button. Can you send it again?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm gonna step away for just a sec. I'll be right back.
Jimena, Alexis is gonna give you a task for leadership.
Okay, cool.
It's you can do it at the office or you can do it at home on your couch, but you're
Okay.
making name tags. She's gonna cut and prep them all and you just have to make them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she'll show you what to do.
Hey, Jimena, I was gonna ask about I forget what we're calling it, but about the contact list.
The directory, I was gonna ask, do you want me to send it into, because for the Spanish RSG, we did it until after the sessions were over. Is that something we still want to do, or?
I think
I
let's
can't,
just send it when we do the follow-up email, so
yeah,
people.
okay, so I'll include it in the follow-up.
Okay, but I wanted to add the funder panel contact info.
Okay,
I don't know if you have it in like spreadsheet form, but if you can share it with me, I can just add their info and send it back to you.
okay, sounds good. I'll share it with you and add that. There's about a couple minutes left.
Nice. Sorry, I was on
No, you're good. I was like, I don't know.
mute.
Everyone should be joining within the next 10 seconds.
Welcome back, everybody. I won't debrief on that conversation, but hopefully sharing what's involved in some organization budgets is just helpful to get you thinking about your organization budgets, where some gaps might be. I want to move on to project budgets. So these are the budgets that are going to be specific to the project or program that you're seeking funding for. So real quick, we have some different types of grant funding, so some different types of project budgets. And this is a slide that we'll work with several times throughout. But in your charter, in that document, you'll see a section that's looking at project type. And this is what that's referring to. So program, capacity building, capital, or general operating. We've talked quite a bit about general operating. Those are those unrestricted funds that support your mission. Capital refers to building or large equipment. Program grants or program budgets are going to look at funding a specific program or a specific activity. And then capacity building is going to be that internal piece. So infrastructure, governance, people power, visioning, fundraising. So capacity building might be a budget to hire on a fund development manager. I don't know, somebody like that, but somebody that's going to help your organization internally grow. So looking at a project budget, so again, that more specific budget, almost all funders, when you're applying for grants, are going to ask you for an organization budget, so the whole organization, and a project budget to be submitted along with your narrative application. A strong, well-formatted project budget is going to help demonstrate strong financial management and planning practices. When working on your project, you want to be, you're answering the questions, what do I have in place and what do I still need? So you're constantly keeping track of those two things, right? So when Samar's talking about, the project to buy, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the machine now. Was it a heart? Mm,
Cardiac monitoring system.
Yeah, monitoring system. I was like, thank you. So she has $1 million price tag on this cardiac monitoring system, right? And she's constantly tracking, okay, like now I have $100,000, I need 900,000 more, right? Now I have $200,000, I need 800,000 more. So what do I need and what do I have? And she's, I'm assuming, keeping that budget updated, right? And so I want to point out that this like internal tracking is allowed to be messy. It's just when you get to that point where you're presenting it to a funder, then you want to get it like cleaned up and easy to understand. But when it's just your internal, you know, you might just have a spreadsheet that you're like, every donation is going in there and you're throwing it in and it's adding up the columns on the side, or it's adding up the donations in one column, right? And you might have notes in there and you might move things around and you might have things color coded. It's whatever works for you at that point. When we get it in front of the funder, then we want to like clean it up and make it so another person could digest it, right? So looking at a project budget, so this looks very similar to the organization budget, right? Revenue on top, expenses underneath, and then these columns are showing individual donations, income, revenue from funder 1 and how that's going to be spent, income from funder 2 and how that's going to be spent, and then your total. I want to share the Ford Family Foundation's budget template that they provide. So Ford Family Foundation is they fund rural Oregon and Siskiyou County. This is the format, the budget template form that they provide in their application process. It also looks really similar to the one that I just had on the screen, right? So put in your sources of revenue, including here's what you're asking from the Ford Family Foundation, and here's what you are planning or have secure from other foundations. And they give you all of these, you know, donations from businesses, donations from individuals, in kind, right? So they're giving you all of this opportunity to show all of the revenue that you have. And then they have these line items that are showing the expenses, and you can change these however you need to. I mostly wanted to share this because they have built into their budget template operating expenses, finance, legal, administrative expenses, and even repairs, maintenance, and upgrades. So you won't normally see these as line items in a budget template that a funder is providing, but the Ford Family Foundation has included them this way, which I think is nice because they're recognizing that these are true expenses for your organization and they want to see what you're spending on it. So thinking about your organization, your project budget, sorry, in this format from the beginning is going to help you be able to get it into a format that funders want to see. Sorry, let me stop talking and get my slideshow back up. All right. Sorry. Okay, Sorry about that. Slight hiccup. So I want to note here when we're looking at this crafting a project budget, like putting your project budget together, that all grant writing, including putting your project budget together, is aspirational, right? Like it all looks to the future. This is all things that like, this is, if everything goes perfectly, this is exactly what's gonna happen, right? So we're describing costs and activities that haven't happened yet. So you can give yourself the flexibility to update budgets as they progress, to make some guesses that are hopefully overestimates, if you're not quite sure on something yet, and allow numbers to move and change as they need to, allow them to evolve. So an example of what I mean by that, so I'm planning on a donor giving me $8,000. And that's an unrestricted donation that I could use for staff for my project, but the donation hasn't happened yet. So when I'm building my project budget, it's up to me if I choose to include that $8,000 as revenue in my budget or not. And I can choose to, I might choose to put it in there to show community support. I'm anticipating that this $8,000 is going to come in and I'm going to use it for these expenses. But you might actually, maybe I don't want to isolate myself to using that for personnel, for staff expenses. Maybe I don't want to include that in this budget and wait for it to actually come through and figure out how I actually need to use that, right? So there's a benefit to putting it in there, there's a benefit to leaving it out. Since you're telling the story, you can choose what you're showing in this budget. Is that donation definitely going to be committed to this project? Or do I need to pull it out of this project budget to keep it more unrestricted and use it where other opportunities or other funding needs might come up? So, this is the piece about like bringing a narrative into your budget. So we don't want to leave funders guessing about how is your money going to be used. We want to make it really, really clear, right? So using these line items, personnel, professional, whatever, you might add one more column over here that says description. And you might say like, personnel is going to include 0.5 time of Bonnie Day in this time period, right? And if you have a travel line, you might say travel is going to include 500 miles at 0.67 or whatever the federal rate is. And you might put that calculation in there actually, right? And some funders are going to ask you to do that specifically. So being able to show how you're getting to those numbers, and then using your budget headings to break down some vague income sources. So instead of just a budget line that says like program expenses, you can like break that out into like supplies, catering, room rental, those sort of like break it down a little bit so they can see what are the program expenses. And then again, those administrative costs, those are the costs that support the day-to-day operations of the organization: rent, utilities, accounting, HR, development and grant writing services, and the time put into that, supervision, your executive director. These are real costs that should have a line in every organization budget. And all of these costs are going to indirectly support your projects and programs, right? So again, I'm saying administrative costs here. Some people say indirect costs, overhead costs, general operating costs, right? Funders may put restrictions on what they're willing to consider for operating costs for a project or for for administrative costs for for a project budget, excuse me. So paying attention to that, are they capping that at 10% of the total project costs? Then you want to show that in your budget. Like you might just have a line that says administrative costs, 10% of total project budget. Here's what that number is. If there's no cap, if they don't say anything about it, show your true costs. Like your true costs might be 20% of your total project budget. Or in the case of the Ford Family Foundation template, you might have this nice opportunity to like list those things out and give like the true amounts instead of just an estimate. So things to think about when you're looking at that administrative line item in your project budget. Again, show in your budget, like I have, you have that revenue section. I have this much from individual donors. I have this much from fee for service. I have this much from our annual fundraiser. Being able to show that you have that diversity of funding. And then in-kind support, I just want to get a quick definition out there. So in-kind is also helping to tell that story of your budget. And these are the non-cash contributions. So the benches that are coming from the local arts organization, right? That's an in-kind contribution that has a monetary value of, I forget what the value was, $1,200 or something like that, I think. It can also include these things listed on the slide here. If you have a donated office space, that's a continuous ongoing in-kind contribution, and your landlord should be able to provide a monetary value for that. And then volunteer time is another important in-kind contribution to consider in your budgets. And if you have a volunteer that runs this program, then definitely consider the value of the time that they're bringing in and show that as a revenue item in your budget. Like in kind, we have somebody that comes in 5 hours per month and makes sure that all registrations are processed or something like that. So that's just another important piece to like bring this narrative together of what all is coming together to make this budget happen. So let's break out again. And this, I want to refer back to, so when you built a summary statement or you started a draft of a summary statement in the last session, it's focusing in on a project. So that's the project that we're going to use as our example throughout this course. So thinking back on that summary statement and that project that you identified, let's break out in groups and brainstorm what expenses you're going to incur to be able to implement that project, right? And start to just line those out. Like what are our different expenses? Don't worry so much about the exact total you can estimate, or don't put a total in right now. You'll do some research later and put something in. But just what are all of the things that maybe I haven't considered yet, or I know I will need to consider? So, oh, Jimena, go ahead.
I'm just saying that I opened up the rooms.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll take about let's do a little less than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
don't know
I did
if you-
8 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So go ahead and jump into a breakout room and have those conversations about your project budgets, and we'll see you back here in a couple minutes.
I had a question for you guys, if it's okay to ask you.
Yeah.
The group that I'm basically representing, we're basically 100% volunteers.
Mhm.
And so and volunteers and out of our pocket expenses, et cetera. And we're trying to, but we are a nonprofit organization and we're representing from a larger umbrella of nonprofit. And I'm just wondering, is there something that you guys might have? Because I feel like I'm the oddball out on that. It seems like everybody else has sort of a combination. Is there other resources or words of pearls of wisdom that you guys have had or?
I think the only thing I would be aware of, especially as an all volunteer organization, if your volunteers have like professional level skills that they're contributing, if you have a volunteer accountant or whatever, showing the true value of that in-kind time. So looking up, I don't know the website, but if you Google searched like volunteer time calculator or something like that, there's sites where you can put in like, these are the kind of services that a volunteer is providing. And they'll spit back out like a hourly rate. That's usually a lot higher than what we estimate.
Mhm.
And so really showing that like this organization is being run, you know, this organization has $100,000 budget. It's just all in kind.
Right. I mean, we do pay to be part of the member and so and we do get some training, but usually we're the ones that do the training for everybody else. So it's sort of a awkward, but we're one of the things that we're trying to do is to offset our yearly get together for training and events, but it has gotten so expensive that people are just like, you know, we're already contributing so much money now and trying to offset some of that cost. And that was one of the main things, but there's other things that we were looking at and depending on how well we do with this. But and then part of it is we, you know, with volunteers, you get the turnover. So some people have been with the organization for 60 years. They're the rarity. And then some of these are 5 years and some of these are 10 or they're brand new. And so, but anyway, I didn't want to take up the time. I just thought I'd quick ask you. So
Jody,
That-
you may have said this, you're a 501c3, you have your,
yes.
okay. Another thing you could do is for anybody who is giving you some type of services, they are paid for, so like a CPA or a grant writer, like find out what their rate of pay is, and you can actually do an in-kind donation receipt and at the rate, the fair market value. And that way you're actually showing for them that for their taxes, they can actually claim that as a donation. And then you're showing to a grantor, you have that listed of what is the fair market value of these professional services like Bonnie's talking about. And there is a calculator. I actually think the federal government has a volunteer rate.
I think I've seen that. I remember looking for it on one of these and I remember coming across, so I'll try to find that again. But like I just tried to get a well-known speaker and I about fell off my chair. I mean, I guess which was totally understandable, but she has a totally flat rate fee. So it could be for one person or it could be for 9,000 people that she will do this for. And it was $10,000. And it was, you know, and I'm just about choked. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to do grants and we'll see if we can't get you and pair with some other, you know, divisions and different states and try to do, you know, a large Zoom session or something like that. But yeah, but
But
yes, I mean, we do have, I mean, a very high budget, but it's usually out of our own pockets. So
Yeah, well, and I think showing that too, like that, because the narrative piece, like how that translates to your narrative is like, we have really committed volunteers who contribute time, finances, and,
Right.
you know, like, this is important to them and this is how important it is to them. And yeah, I think that having an all volunteer group, really shows that, like, you know, I can't think of a better word, but like kind of that like the dedication, you know, it's important to people, and it's this important to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
What is the organization?
So, it's the National Ski Patrol, and we're 90%, 5% volunteers, and we represent the Pacific Northwest in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And so we have just about 3,000 members.
Wow.
And so, but you know, the training and all that. So it's just, but we pay our dues, and that goes towards the operating. And but it
Yeah.
was sort of like, we can't keep sustaining. Our
Yeah.
membership is getting older and older, and we need to get newer, younger people involved. And but our convention, and we're going to be up in North Seattle for next year, and because we rotate through the 3 states. And it just, in thinking of this, I'm in the back of my mind going, well, gosh, if we could get funding for a building and make our own little get together spot in a central place. I mean, it probably would take about 5 years, but you know, that would be awesome, because that would save a huge amount of money.
Yeah,
So,
right, the long-term benefits, yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I'm working with like other search and rescue organizations that are also all volunteers. Who knows? But gives me lots of ideas to try to put forth. So,
Yeah, I like that concept a lot, that's really cool.
Another thought I was having, Jody, is when you're filling out a grant and if it asks like, what do your board members contribute, like you should, and that's another reason to be tracking these in-kind donations, because they may not be writing a check for $100 or 1,000, but they may be giving time and talent and treasure in a different way.
right.
So being sure to have some type of tracking mechanism for that would be really helpful and supportive in your grant.
Right.
That say I have 100% contributing board.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's this last group I was telling them, I said, you know, our biggest problem is that when we do our budget, we look like we have such a huge deficit, but that's only if everybody turned in every single receipt, and we historically usually eat it ourselves. And so we bring it down, and we're like, this is not working too well. but thanks.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. So the hope is that you are getting some ideas together to start filling out that budget section of your project charter of the document that we're working on throughout this course. So at this point in that project charter, that we shared out in session 1, you worked on your summary statement. And then now can you start adding a project budget to that? Do you know like what some of those expenses are and what some of those revenue sources might be? Some ideas for grants you might look at, some ideas for local fundraising you might do, and some ideas for what are some of those in-kind things that we need to consider. So that is the wrap up and culmination of our budgeting section. Thank you for getting through it. It's a mouthful for sure. Homework moving past week 2 as we go towards week 3. Finish the budget section of your project charter. Research expenses and consider funding sources. So if you have some of those budget line items and you're like, I don't know what this total is, try getting close to an accurate number there. Do some of those calculations. What does travel break down to? You know, what does personnel break down to? Who are we actually looking at? How much of this staff person's time is this project going to actually take? And then consider those administrative overhead items too. And then ask yourself, can you answer the question for your organization? What do I need? What does this project need, and what dollar amount does that equate to, right? And make a plan for keeping that answer up to date. So this goes back to that messy internal spreadsheet, right? How are you going to track all of the things coming in? And then third item for homework, review your organization budget. Where are some of the gaps? Where, where do we fall short? Like, do we have enough revenue planned to cover all of our expenses? And what's the plan for making up any of those gaps? And then in the next session, we're going to start looking at identifying funders and doing research to find funders that are in alignment with your mission and your programs.
Tammy, you
Thanks.
have your hand up?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I put it in the chat earlier, but we were in the midst of other things, and so it got skipped over. One of the things that our Rotary group has to do often is monitoring and evaluation, and it depends on what type of grant you are doing. But that is an important line item to put in your budget to make sure that you're meeting the requirements of whatever those grants are. If they require you to track this project for 5 years, then you've got to figure out how to do that. So it's just one I just want to bring to people's attention so that they don't miss it, because it can be expensive. Sometimes funders limit it to, say, 10% of the budget, kind of similar to what you might see for administration costs. But it's something important. Not everybody requires it, but it's more and more we're seeing that it is required to make sure it's a sustainable project and that they have data to follow up on it.
Thanks, Tammy. Yeah, great point. Did somebody else have a hand raised?
Someone else did, but I think they left. I don't see them.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
wait,
gonna-
Emily Bloom. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to jump in and use Emily's space. How's that?
Sure.
So, there's often theory that, demonstrating the need for the funds so that to make sure it happens versus wanting to show that it will happen, the program can happen with or without the support. There's very different theories, and you can get in creative budgeting. So I'm interested in like that art of budgeting and application theory stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
That common grant application question of, if you are not funded by us, will this project move forward?
Right.
Right. And I think that depends on who your funder is and what your relationship is with them, how you answer that question and how you show it in your budget. If you're looking at, state level funding from Travel Oregon or something like that, and you've built up a partnership with them and they've told you very specifically, we want to see this kind of downtown revitalization project, and you've built a project around exactly what they want to see,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't fund it, that might be a bigger hurdle than like, this is funding to expand our soccer league, and I have a list of 10 funders and I've overestimated, and if I'm expecting that 1 or 2 of these isn't going to come through because I'm building relationships with all of these funders. And so I've built it in there, like, yeah, if you don't fund me this time, I'm still moving forward and we'll come back around to you and we'll talk about it again next time, right? So it depends on who the funder is and the nature of the project. I don't know if that's a satisfying answer, but I think
It's not, Bonnie.
yeah. Yeah. I assume. Yeah.
Because a lot of times, especially as we get, more focused on additional funding, we don't have these relationships, and some are a little more tight-lipped on their rubric, if you will. I wonder if there's data available on the different approaches, like successfully awarded grants at the full amount when, it was based on funds critical to the program versus not. Is there a resource like that?
Not one that I know.
Okay.
Let me think on that question. And actually, Terry, if you have a couple seconds afterwards, let me wrap up real quick so we can get people moving on.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So our next dates, and then thank you to everybody for participating. Thanks so much for being with us today and sharing your budget expertise and working with us on the budgeting part can be intimidating, but hopefully we've moved you forward a little bit. Again, be in contact with me and Jimena if you have any questions throughout the week, and we'll send that follow-up email early next week with resources and info for session 3.